when it was still the hospital then?
Yes. Yeah.
So when they shut it down, where did everyone go?
Different parts, different institutions in the state. And they were also trying to kind of get away from institutions at the time. So they built a lot of smaller group homes.
Oh, okay.
And at that point, the state shut them down because they were mistreating their patients.
Right.
You know, the state had really kind of caught on to the regulations quite a bit more by then. And that's when they really started pushing the group homes as opposed to the institutions. But still, if you go down the hill, when you get to the bottom of the hill, if you take a left as opposed to a right, which the right brings you back like towards the highway, if you take a left, they still have all, like, that's Hogan Regional, like where they do all kinds of special ed, special needs work.
Okay.
So this is still kind of the basis of the property.
Because one thing I always think about when they get rid of these places and shut them down. So my dad, he grew up in Foxborough. So in the 60s, 70s, sometime around there was an institution in his town. And he said they closed it and they didn't do anything with the people. So he said there were just all these people walking around.
I mean, I think for some people that probably is what happened. But the people, you know, I think there were probably some people that they released and realized could maybe take care of themselves better than they thought. And I think that there were a lot of people that were put in group homes. The people that were wards of the state still couldn't take care of themselves. But the people that live in town will tell you, especially those who lived like around the bottom of this hill, that patients would escape all the time and they would get knocks on their door, like from the police. Stay in your houses, lock the doors. We have escaped patients. And some of them were violent. Some of them were violent.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I had 2,000 people. When you get 2,000 general public, I mean, you're going to get some violent people in there.
Yes. And some of them were violent before they came here, and some of them were probably violent as a result of what they went through here.
For sure.
So there's a big part of me that wonders how much of the negative energy that's still there on the property is based on not only the mistreatment of the people while they were there in the state hospital, but then the complete lack of planning for what was going to happen with these people when they closed it. I mean, you can't just come in and close down a hospital with 2,000 patients and have no sort of transition plan. Group homes are only going to have 10 or 12 people each. Did they have 200 group homes all set up for these people? And when they were being placed in the group homes, were they appropriately grouped?
Right.
And I certainly don't know if any of the spirits that are still there on the property now are people who left and then maybe were forgotten about, or they fell through the cracks in the system. Maybe they ended up going back up to the property because it was the only place that they knew, and maybe living in the tunnels. Did we talk about the tunnels at all?
No.
Danvers State Hospital was serviced by a huge network underground of all sorts of tunneling. The tunnels are supposedly just horrific, even to this day, to go in, and they just have this terrible, terrible energy. Jamie talked earlier about people being, like locked up and put in a straitjacket and left alone for days. They would just put them in the tunnels because they were too loud. People yelling and so like, we don't want to listen to you. So they would leave people in the tunnels. But they were a good way to be able to move from one area of the hospital campus to another one, building to building, without having to go out into the elements, and to really kind of keep off the radar. The tunnels are another place where a lot of horrific things happen to people. So there's a possibility that people who fell through the cracks may have come back and, set up shop in the tunnels underneath. They were just camping there on the land. You never know. And then possibly died there and are still haunting the land.
I don't know if there's any evidence of that, but yeah, it's possible. It's possible, yeah.
We're on a ghost hunting podcast.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we don't necessarily traffic in like hard concrete evidence. It's a lot of theory. It's a lot of ideas.
Yeah.
So now the part you guys have all been waiting for, to find out a little bit about the fabulous and wonderful medium Jamie Day.
Woohoo!
One of the things that is always a point of interest is, at least to me, not being somebody who's necessarily on-point psychic. I can only call it up occasionally and without ever trying. Do you have one of those things that sometimes it just comes through and other times, like I can't do it on command?
Yeah, no, I mean, back when I was doing readings professionally and semi-professionally, if there's someone standing across me, then I can kind of call it up. I wouldn't say throughout my day, I'm like, ooh, I need to be psychic now. I'd say it just pops up when it does and does when it doesn't. You know my big psychic thing, Beth? I've told you about this.
I bet you're going to tell me again right now.
I absolutely am. And it's such a stupid thing. And I've talked to other people, and they say they have the same, like, not necessarily the exact same. Some of them do. But a lot of people have, like, these similar things where it's just, like, a dumb psychic thing to have.
Yep.
So I always know when people are reading my text messages.
That's called a read receipt?
No. It happens with you a lot, too. So what will happen is I'll send someone a text message or something. I'll be going about my day, and all of a sudden I hear myself reading the text message in my head. And when I finish, like, a beat goes by and I get a response.
If it's from me, it's probably snarky.
Usually, yes.
Yes, okay. I'm much nicer on the podcast than I am in real life.
I'm just really good at editing.
So, sorry, back to Jamie. We always like to know how our guests and our interviewees kind of came upon their various gifts, their psychicness, their medium gifts. And so, Jamie, you talked a little bit about that right here.
Do you want to tell our listeners a little about yourself and what you do?
Sure. So my name's Jamie. I'm from Danvers. I was mostly born and raised here. I did live in Salem for a long time. So I always like to joke that, you know, I've seen spirits and ghosts and had ghostly experiences since I was a little girl. And I didn't even really realize that I was a medium until I was in my 30s. So for me, it was like, I just thought everywhere that I lived was haunted. I live in a town that was known for it. And then I moved to another town that was known for it. So I just thought I happened to keep getting the haunted houses. But now, you know, in my 30s, I was able to put two and two together. And I have been doing this work professionally now for about 2 years. And for a while before that, before I kind of came out of the medium closet. So I give mediumship readings to people to help them connect with their past loved ones, to sort of offer a sense of validation and love and let them know that they're still with you. I also do spiritual development teaching. So I teach mediumship to people. I teach, you know, various other spiritual development, how to connect to your spirit guides, your intuition. We do, you know, yoga and meditation workshops. So I do all that kinds of stuff, but I'm also a huge horror movie buff. I've always loved ghost stories. When I was a kid, I used to read like spooky stories or, you know, scary stories to tell in the dark. Like
that was like my favorite
Yeah,
book.
me too. And I still have the book and my kids still read it. And it's like dog-eared, like the pages are all falling out and I still read it to my kids. My 5-year-old son wants me to read it to him before bed. So I have a feeling he's going to take after his mom. Like
He's going to be
being into
spooky.
the ghosts. Yes, yeah. So I've always been into that. Like I would have the book like hidden in the hymnal at church when I was a kid. And my friends would be watching like Full House and I would be watching Unsolved Mysteries.
There you go.
I was like obsessed with James Van Prague when I was like 7. He's a huge medium. How I even knew who he was, I don't know. So,
oh, that's awesome. So you said you realized you were a medium. How did that happen? Like in your 30s?
yeah. So, I mean, I don't think it was necessarily any like one particular incident. I've always, like I said, I've always kind of seen ghosts and felt drawn to like spirits and spirituality and all that kind of stuff. But, I would say probably the biggest factor that helped pull it out in me was the sudden and unexpected passing of my mother-in-law. She died of a very sudden heart attack, and it was really kind of traumatic for all of us. We had just lost my father-in-law a year prior to that, and my mother-in-law was very into mediums. And when she died, you know, I remember crying, and I was taking care of everybody else. I got a whole mess of kids and my husband to take care of. And so I would like be crying to myself and trying to talk to her on the way into work. And I would just beg her, like, send me signs. I know that you were into this and I know that you would be lobbing them at me. So just let me see them. And it was like floodgates kind of opened. I just was getting so many signs. And I would text my sister-in-law and be like, okay, I know this is going to sound really weird, but like, I swear your I swear your mom is standing behind me right now. Like, I can feel her.
Yeah. Wow.
There was even one incident where my husband was cracking some kind of sarcastic joke. Like he wasn't even really talking about his parents, but he was just teasing me, and he said something like, oh yeah, well, I'm an orphan, and we have this cabinet in our living room that has my mother-in-law and my father-in-law's ashes are mixed together because they were together from the time they were 14.
Oh, God bless
I
them.
know. So she literally died of a broken heart after he died. so we have their ashes mixed together, and they're in this cabinet, and the cabinet is like 200 years old, a super old antique. And so we had cardboard wedged into the door to make sure it stays shut. I don't want my kids messing with the ashes, right? So we have cardboard like wedged in there to make sure it stays shut. And my husband's like, yeah, well, I'm an orphan. And the door went pop and flew open. The cardboard went pew and popped out. And I was like, ooh, your mom did not like that.
Oh, gosh.
So she has made her presence known.
Wow.
And I still feel her very strongly with me. And like before I do readings, sometimes I call on her, or I call on my grandmother who has since passed too. And I just feel they were into it, and they supported me. And I feel like they're on the other side supporting me now. They're like my partners in work.
See, that's a really good mother-in-law story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. That's awesome.
Well, I wasn't raised by my mom. And I will never forget that one of the first things that she, like once we really got into a relationship and I was starting to kind of be more a part of the family, she said to me, you can call me mom if you want to. And I loved her and I miss her.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's
but glad
okay.
that
Thank
she's
you.
Sounds like
Yeah.
she's still there. Yeah.
Yeah, she is.
Helping you out still.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Oh, that's a nice story.
Yeah.
I like that story. That's a good one.
Yeah. So that's how Jamie found out she was a medium.
Yeah, that's great. Good story.
With the amount of negative mother-in-law stories that are out there, it's just so refreshing to hear like a positive, my mother-in-law did this for me, and it shows a really good connection. And I think it really reflects well on Jamie that she was able to forge that relationship, that those are typically pretty fraught with tension.
Yeah, I watch a lot of Dr. Phil. They're always talking about monster-in-laws.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dr. Phil, really?
I love Dr. Phil.
Oh, sorry. I like Maury.
Okay.
Dr. Phil's a little too woo-woo.
You think Dr. Phil is woo and Maury isn't?
Maury is all sorts of drama, and you are the father, and the lie detector test shows that was not the truth.
I've been to an episode of Maury.
I know. I'm pretty jealous. The last clip that we have from Jamie for tonight is about what she does when she does a mediumship reading. We've had a number of different mediums and psychics on here. They each have their own sort of style that they go through and how they connect with different things. I think that it is really helpful, like if you wanted to go to Abigail Dalton, or if you wanted to go see Tim Regan, or if you wanted to get in touch with medium Jamie Day, they're all going to have a different style. Knowing your medium style before you go in there is definitely helpful to make sure that you're getting the best results for, quite frankly, your money. Here goes Jamie.
People sit with you for mediumship readings. Is it like a half hour and you just get what kind of comes in? Do people get to ask about certain other people?
Yeah, so I do, in my private readings, those are currently around 45 minutes. I've changed the times up and down a little, and I feel like that's what works the best, especially because I often tend to go over a little bit. So those are they're supposed to be 45 minutes. And I usually start with whatever is coming through for you, and then I try and save time for if you have any specific questions. And you don't have to just ask mediumship questions. You can ask, if you want to connect with your spirit guides, find out who your spirit guides are. A lot of the times the spirit guide stuff will bring up past life stuff because that's how they know you, that's how they're connected to you, and it relates to your present life. I also don't mind if someone says to me like, oh, I really wanted to talk to my grandma and she didn't come through. Can you feel her around? Now, I can't control it. She may not come through, but I'm always willing to try, and I very rarely have an issue with it. Usually, if you want to hear from them, they want to support you in that.
One thing people kind of always ask about on the show, so you define yourself as a medium. Would you also say you're a psychic?
So that's tricky. So,
Right.
I mean, technically, yeah. Yes.
Okay.
But I've always been kind of resistant to the term, and I don't know why. I can't really put my finger on why. That's hard for me to say. But yeah, I feel like I'm a psychic medium. Now, mostly what I feel like I get is info from spirits that are around you, but they share information with me that's going to help you. And sometimes it'll be future predictions, which are often right. And I hear from people later, oh my God, he did get that job,
It's awesome.
Yeah, so thanks so much, psychic medium Jamie Day. That was awesome. Please, please, please go check out Jamie. Her Instagram and Facebook is at Medium Jamie Day. That's Medium JAMIEDAY. You can book a reading directly on her website at www.mediumjamieday.com. They can reach her through email, mediumjamieday@gmail.com.